He's at that rainbow bridge tapping his bowl like, this is empty.
Hello and welcome to the Part-Time Gamers, the gaming podcast for people with full-time lives. I'm Sarnax, clocking in with my good friend, That One Weirdo.
You know, I gotta be honest, folks, after all these years, I think the Grinch had a point.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Christmas, and look, it's a holiday that varies.
Yeah.
And not just by way of celebration, it's about how you view it. And having children who are grown, and it's not like buying them like tons of plastic anymore. Like, I have a completely different outlook on it. You know, I think I buy more stuff for my cat for Christmas than I do for them.
Yeah.
Why does Steve get so much? Because he doesn't judge.
Yeah. Pretty much. I mean, yeah, it's gonna be interesting this year, especially.
Yeah.
I'm hoping
I think
that
the best thing you can do your best. It's all about the thought that counts. I encapsulate Christmas this way. Here's my sage like wisdom for the decade. I get why people get engrossed in Christmas the way they do, but when I was married, we used to really go all out on Christmas and it hurt in so many ways. But I'm a firm believer. It's like, there are 364 other days. I don't need one day to tell people by way of gifting them how much I love them. I can do that with the rest of the time within the year. And I think that matters most to me, especially when it's the stuff that's out of nowhere. Like, I love having those moments where I'll walk by something and I know it's something my girlfriend or someone would buy for themselves, but just probably wouldn't. But if they saw it, they would be enamored. And like some of the gifts I've given, I've been lucky, I guess. But they're like, where did you find this? I'm like, that's one of the few things I'm good at. I don't know.
Yeah. Just if Thanksgiving was any indication with my family, specifically one person in my family is could be potentially problematic. But we'll see. I don't know if I should laugh, but I'm gonna. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. As long as he chooses to keep his mouth shut for most of the night, I don't think we should have any issues.
Just be civil, even if you don't agree with your family about whatever. Like, that's the one you get.
Yeah,
especially that's, you're not gonna like them all.
Yeah,
you're not gonna agree with them all the time, and that's a bummer. I found out today that 2 months ago, an uncle of mine died in Hawaii, and we didn't keep in touch with that side of the family for a lot of personal squabbles between my parents and them and yada yada. And I was kind of blown away. And to be fair, he wasn't the nicest person. But then again, in recollection, who's ever nice? But I told her, I said, I'm still a little bummed. And she's like, why? I was like, because he was my uncle. Like, he was still a part of my makeup in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And you only get the one family. And you really only get to do it once. So hopefully he'll just be grateful to be around you guys. Sounds like it's a 50-50.
Well, it's not so much that he's ungrateful about being around us. It's just certain recent decisions he's made have shown his what kind of personality he has. So we'll leave it as vague as that.
Copy that. Very good.
Anyways, with that, let's go ahead and get into our articles with our water cooler talk.
You get that thing I sent you?
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and start off with an article from you that no one will be surprised about, given our history.
Oh, it's more the intricacies. This is literally one of those. It's like the creamy nougat inside. It's not the chocolate on the outside.
Yeah.
So Ubisoft has been, how do I put this delicately, shitting the bed for a while.
Yeah, that's about as delicately as you need to go.
Yes. Well, and we've seen the past couple of years, especially with other buyouts and other takeovers, that veil is getting pulled back, and we're starting to see kind of the ugly probably more than before, of the industry. And
Yeah.
like any industry, it's survival based as well as evidence based. Like if you're doing it, you're doing it, and you're not doing it, you're not doing it. Well, Ubisoft has not been doing it for a long time, and they have tried to plug that leaky boat with Hello Kitty band-aids, and that ship ain't floating.
Yeah.
So, as people had speculated, even though they shot down the original rumors that there was going to be a buyout, there were companies that actually have stock in the company that were going to look to take over controlling shares and be put over to them. So Tencent, who, for those who don't know, is literally a Chinese company that buys everything.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I think they even have a stake in Blizzard. So I think that was part of the agreement, so that like World of Warcraft could be in China. Was Tencent had to have a stake in it.
Yeah. For the fact that they get their fingerprints in every pie they can, and now coming to this possibility of them doing so with Ubisoft, there's a little caveat that the family of the company who owns the controlling stock, who is really those who've started been the stewards of Ubisoft for so long, it's right at 11th hour and they go, ahem. I won't do a French accent for various reasons, but they want to remain in control of the company and the decision making. You have Dwayne Johnson eyebrow. They want to be bought out to save the company, but they still want to have the keys to the Camaro. And I can't think of a better way. I think you would agree with me on this. This is a better way to encapsulate why Ubisoft is where it's at. If you're a company and you know that your last, 3-4 big releases have just fell on their face. You literally had a game you spent a decade on.
Yeah.
And when you launched it, was it horrid? No. But you couldn't explain why 10 years on a pirate game looked like this. You didn't give us 10 years of a pirate game going, like 13 years to make Alan Wake 2, and you go, I see that.
Oh, yeah.
The care, the structure, the meticulous way that it's all executed, and it's got a musical number that's awesome.
Yes.
And you can tell that time, thought, effort, care was put into those things. You look at Skull and Bones or Bones and Skulls or Pirates of the Johnny Depp or whatever they called it. And it's fun. I've played it a few times here and there to get some kicks out of it, but it's not something I would go, I spent 10 years on this.
Yeah.
So this is kind of encapsulating where Ubisoft is at, and now they're kind of at a stalemate. I don't think Tencent is going to go through with the overall buyout, because if they can't come to some kind of agreement on this one caveat, because apparently everything is all squared, save the one thing that is the kick in the teeth. And it's literally like, hey, you're at home base. You're going to have a company, keep the name, even if it's just the name on the box, but keep the name, keep the properties. You have some video game immortality kind of, staying for all time. Because there was a time they made amazing games. And now it's like, no. Yeah, we're making the boat sink, but we still want to sink with it. And it's like, no.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure the buyout's not going to take, and I don't think there's going to be any other takers, because overall, to take on that much risk and debt and the issues they're having, the layoffs they're having, anybody who takes it over is going to take it over as a project. That's why I don't think anybody's just going to come in and swoop in and get it. It's going to be more of, hey, we have stock in this. Let's get the handles on this and see what we can do. But it really is the family in charge of all of it that wants to stay in power. And this is why I crap on Ubisoft every chance I get.
I mean, it's an easy target because they constantly make bad decisions. Another thing that kind of I think prompted some of this as well was that so I think it was last month or month before recently, there was speculation that they were going to pull the plug on X Defiant. And they denied it, saying that we still have plans for another season and everything, all that jazz. Well, they're pulling the plug on X Defiant.
They are set. And X Defiant, I kind of like.
Yeah, and like that. Of course, that led to layoffs. 277 employees were laid off, and they're going to be closing 2 production studios associated with X Defiant. And anyone who's watching the stream right now, this is my surprised face.
Just such a gross mismanagement. And it's like they don't even live in reality about the situation.
Yeah. And now they're making demands to like, hey, save us, but let us keep control. It's like, that's not how this works. Obviously, your decision-making capabilities are flawed, and you should have someone else take control. You know, if anything, to just save the name of the company. But yeah, it's
one thing they've lacked overall, and I've talked about it before, and the big companies have really started showing this the past year or two, but Ubisoft is one of those labels that has no direction. They put out what they think is best, but I don't think they know how to listen to the fan base, and I don't think they want to. And this move about, well, we wrecked the first car, well, you're going to buy me a nicer car. What do you mean I can't drive? And that's just, I mean, that's like I said, it's almost not living in reality. And the thing is too, is that I would expect, like from a buyout standpoint, the family would make out like bandits. Like they may retain some connection to the company, but if you're buying everybody out, part of that structure is, okay, yeah, you failed, but here's your $40 million. So I think they need to really, I think they all need to take that long, hard look in the mirror type of moment where it's like, we had a great ride for a good 10. I mean, they really, really did. When you stop and look at like companies that help make other consoles, they're at the top of the list at their peak.
Yeah.
And now it's like, you know what? We were the guys. We're not the guys anymore. Let's bring in the guys. And if it's not us, then maybe we need to just accept that.
Yeah.
So I don't think the company as a whole is going anywhere. But I do know they're not doing themselves any favors, especially when you start to hear some of these details about how they won't relinquish, the degrees of control they probably need to. And hey, you know what? It's okay. If you can save the label and save these properties, these IPs, many of which they've created from the ground up, it's okay. You had a great run.
Yeah.
The Beatles even broke up. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay.
Yeah. It's just
there's a branch.
It's just corporate greed, and and
hubris. It is disgusting hubris where they just don't. There's a part of me, real quick. There's a part of me that can't help but to go. If you relinquish control, that means you admit defeat and failure. Like there's something about that that's like kind of aligned, where it's like, well, if I sell it off, then I said I jacked it up, and it's like, he did.
Yeah, but I mean, there's independent, there's indie studios that have acknowledged like, okay, we made a mistake, and they made it better, and the game is better because of that. One example that I can know of off the top of my head, Helldivers 2. They made a bunch of They admitted, okay, we over-nerfed a bunch of weapons in order to try to maintain balance. Okay, they even had a written out 60-day commitment to fix the problems that were going on in the game first and foremost. And they did that. I mean, it even went so far as the CEO of the company relinquished his position in order to focus on the development of the game.
Yep.
And that was very successful for that. Helldivers 2 at one point was down to like less than 20,000 people playing. And nowadays when I go on, it's up to like 40 to 50, like middle of the night, average. Yep. So
that game's got staying power.
Oh yeah.
And it's that damn good. And they took it on the chin, you know?
Yeah, they did.
Yep. So Cyberpunk, same thing.
Yeah.
We took it on the chin. And now it's like, oh, so this is what you meant 5 years ago. And it's like, yeah, we did, but we didn't. And that's okay. But it's just the hubris, and I think it also goes back to now where we're at with the AAA companies and games, where it's like, well, we spent all this money. What do you mean you don't like it? And it's like, but you didn't get the message.
Yeah.
Like all this social media back and forth traffic, and you still didn't get the message.
Yeah. Whenever you have a company assuming they know what people want, usually they're wrong. Especially when it's like, okay, game development now is like multiple years for these AAA games to come out. And it's like, by time they actually come out, the trend that they were trying to chase is already gone or is already dominated by someone else. So it's like, that's why we're having so much more success with these indie studios. They're just like, okay, they can develop a game in 1 or 2 years. They do an early access, so they have direct communication with the people playing the game. And it's like, hey, we're having this issue. It'd be nice if you changed this. It's like, oh, these are good suggestions. We'll do that. And
they know how to take in that feedback.
Yeah, exactly. And they're small enough to pivot with these changes. But
yeah. Well, I have hope for them, but the episode we have where we know they're completely going under, like the Titanic, I'll be here with a bottle of French champagne popping it, going.
Pretty much. All right. Let's go over to my article, which is significantly more whimsical. So for those who don't know, a little game called Marvel Rivals came out this past week. It's make it as reductive as possible. It's basically Marvel Overwatch. So it's
and that's a compliment.
Yeah, well, that is. I mean, Overwatch. For all the flaws that Overwatch has gotten over the years, it's still pretty much genre defining. It's been one of the most successful. Yeah, it's been one of the most successful versions of that team shooter, in recent memory. So calling it a Marvel Overwatch is not really a bad thing. They do, but it feels like old Overwatch. Not the new Overwatch 2 monetization's a little wonky and balance. No, that's things feel just a little bit off. But when Overwatch first came out, it felt so good. And this is what it's feeling like right now. Things are fresh. You have characters that you've known for over a decade now. If you're just in the MCU, they definitely take a lot of elements that we've seen in Overwatch and kind of mix and match them into characters in here. I can't really identify a single character that is just a carbon copy of an Overwatch character. They all have a little bit of scattered elements of everything at times. So that's kind of cool to see that kind of mix up. But we're going to talk about specifically one character in here who is Jeff the Landshark. He is he is adorable, and it's funny. He has this one move where they don't really explain how he's able to do this, but he's able to basically turn like solid material into water and just swim around. They don't really explain why. He just can do it. But there's one where I believe the move is called hide and seek, where he just dives into the ground. You just see his fin sticking out. He's just moving around, and eventually, if you do that for long enough, he starts doing the Jaws sound. Just dun 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 dun. And it's adorable. But apparently, he's also a lethal killing machine that can destroy an entire team in one move. His ultimate is called It's Jeff, and he dives underground. You see this big circle, and he can just swallow up everyone that's in that circle and then just chuck them all off a cliff. So he can decimate an entire team just by doing that. He's the only character that I can think of that can do something like that. The only one there's a couple other characters where it's a little bit more or a little bit more advertised what they're about to do. Scarlet Witch has this giant just bomb basically that she just detonates around herself, but she yells out, pure chaos and everything before she does it. So you have a little bit of time to run away. Magneto does something where he throws a giant magnet ball basically on the ground and can decimate a team that way. But Jeff's, there's almost no telegraph that's happening. like almost at all. He does it, and he's just immediately underneath you, swallows you up, and can just launch you off of a cliff. So this is it's just kind of adorable death, and it's I'm hoping that is something that it's going to get looked at. I hope, because it's to put it delicately, it's a little bit bullshit. But it is something that's in the game currently, and I'm thoroughly enjoying this game. I have not had that specific thing happen to me very often, if at all. But yeah, I could go on about Marvel Rivals. I've been doing.
He's adorable.
Yeah, and he's considered a support too. So he's actually a healer. And he can just murderize everyone. But
yeah, my son has gone headlong into this game, and he has just been 100%. And he sent me a picture of Jeff, and I was like, "What's that?" He goes, "That's Jeff." And the first thing my mind went to, for those who know, on 22 Jump Street, when they're like, he needs to do an accent. He's like, "My name's Jeff." I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But the gameplay is fantastic, and how can you be mad at that killing machine? He's adorbs.
Yeah, he's pretty much the closest thing to adorable in that game, and but yeah, I'm sure eventually, like, I already have an idea of what I want to do for next month, so maybe in February, I definitely want to talk about this game because it's definitely doing a lot of things right for where it's at. There's and it's been available since Thursday night.
Yep.
So there's still a lot of time for it to be this well done this early on, I think is a good sign. And I'm not going to say it's perfect. There's still flaws that can be ironed out and stuff, but they have time to do it. They can put in patches. But yeah, I don't want to go too much into it because we will talk about this in more detail later on another show.
We'll have a Jeff show. We'll dress up as actually I think I could fit it. My girlfriend has a shark onesie, and I will wear that. Yeah,
people watching the stream, right there, I actually have an Iron Man helmet on my shelf.
Yeah, there you go.
So the one thing that sucked, like, this was another article that I was thinking of putting on here, but there's another article where it says, like, everyone is lamenting that, like, no one wants to play healer in Marvel Rivals, and the veteran Overwatch players are just kind of like nodding their head in solidarity. It's like, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, true story.
It's like, and of course, I'm one of the people that's actually willing to fill. So I think I've gotten to play a damage dealer maybe 2 games. All of my other games are either tanks or healers, and it's. I want to play Magic, okay? I want to play Magic. She's a great character. I want to play as her. I never get to.
Great character. Almost,
yeah. I love her. We'll talk about this on another show. We got other stuff to talk about. But
I will say this: if I get in the shark onesie, you know what's going to have to happen, right? Jeffrey Shark, boop, 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 Jeffrey Shark, boop, 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 Jeffrey Shark.
I'm more irritated that I didn't see that coming. Yeah. Anyway.
See,
all right.
I already projected that one. I come out in a onesie and you're gonna be like,
Yeah. We'll get there. I'm sure. But before we get back to work, I want to mention our Patreon, patreon.com/PTGcast. If you like what you're hearing, like to help us out with our monthly paychecks, you can go there. $1, $5, $10. It all helps us. You can get some benefits. Pre-show, you get to hear us talking about some somber news of pets and such. You get a little bit of the post-show and all that jazz for $5 or more. That's at patreon.com/PTGcast. With that, let's go ahead and get back to work.
Morning break is over.
All right. So today last week we had my first solo show on here for talking about my games of the year. Today we're going to be talking about Theo's games of the year. So Go ahead.
Pong, tiddlywinks.
Yeah. All right. Where are we starting?
All right. So first, I'm gonna flip the script a little bit. I'm gonna start with, and I'm only gonna go with one, because this one shines above and beyond in a sea of turdness, and I've talked about it at great length. The worst game of the year for yours truly is Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League, and
Again, this is my surprise face.
Well, you're like the Sphinx. Yeah. There's nothing there. I guess the best way to kind of keep this short and sweet, even for the likes of me, Mr. Jabberjaw, is this is what's wrong with gaming. I think it encapsulates everything that's wrong, everything that we hem and haw about and talk about on this show, as well as other gaming shows. This is literally the encapsulation of, hey, people like this, so let's just do this. And it's not even done in the sense of how it needs to be executed. They just kind of throw it together. This game literally is the equivalent of like the Birds of Prey movie. And as a DC fan, you know, I'm kind of obviously showing my cards here. I love what I love and I hate what I hate. And DC can do wrong like anybody else.
Oh, yeah.
And that movie was just thrown together, in my opinion, like how I feel about it watching it. And I don't hate it. I hate this game. Is that they like Harley Quinn, throw that in there. They like this, throw that in there. Not structure. Because when you look at the overall gameplay, it is everything we've seen before. It is a storyline that is bland.
Yeah.
And I don't know. We know that creatives, directors, people take creative license with the appearance of characters. Yeah. I do not know how you screw up the Suicide Squad because they, to the comics, and of course there's different iterations in the comic when they reboot universes and stuff, but many of them are so specific. How do you get that wrong?
Yeah. I mean,
like Harley Quinn looks like a blow-up doll of herself. Like it is the weirdest look. It's like, what am I seeing?
And then even the comparison of Harley Quinn in Kill the Justice League versus whatever the last Arkham game was, you know, which came out like what 9 years earlier or something like that. It came out a not insignificant amount of time earlier, and it looks phenomenal in the old one, and it just looks bland in the new one. And it's not just because of our perception. It's like you do it side by side, you can there's a noticeable difference between their models and everything. And also just if you're gonna have a game that revolves around killing the Justice League, make their deaths spectacular.
Yes, thank you.
They did not do that at all.
Nope.
It's like the Justice League's deaths were just, it happened. Cool. Yep. I mean, the person who had the most climactic death was Wonder Woman, and she wasn't one of the ones you killed. She was killed by Superman.
Yep.
And it's like, if you're, I agree with you. All that to say is I agree with you.
Well, and the storyline's just all over the place, and it's so weird how, especially when they marketed it, they were really trying to push it as this, hey, we're DC, we can be edgy. And it's like, you ever stop and think about when like creatives attempt to be edgy and they say they're edgy, they're not edgy?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird how you can apply it and say it and have like two different things. This is the kind of game that broke my heart because as a DC fan, I want them to prevail. I am also very much that person who I actually watched it at a Broovies, the very first Suicide Squad. And I had an epiphany moment of like, wow, my world's been shattered. Because they talk about putting this team together. Basically, for those who don't know the Suicide Squad, it is comic book villains meet the Dirty Dozen. Basically, this tactical team of bad guys
they're expendable. They're meant to be sent on suicide missions. Yeah.
And they talk about in the beginning of the movie, the first one, about, well, what would happen if Superman would rip the top off of the Oval Office and take the president. And then you look who's in the Suicide Squad, and it's like nobody could stop him. So you kind of have that moment. It's like, yeah, maybe you need a response team, but not taking on Superman.
Yeah.
And even within the game, like there's a lot of that kind of slugging. And just everything, at least for my money, is executed poorly. I can't even find much in the way of redeeming.
Yeah.
And of course, a lot of money was thrown at this thing. The loss is somewhere like in the $200 million range, because this is a case of throwing money at something and hope it sticks, because a lot of these studios have the asinine ideal of like, well, we made a thing, why don't you like it?
Yeah.
And that, I think it encapsulates a lot of what's wrong with the industry. And I think that, I mean, it literally gives us so much ammo about what we talk about.
Yeah, it does.
So, yeah, Justice League. And at one point, like the the Super Stellar edition or whatever, they wanted $170. I'm like, go jump in a lake, dude. That's not happening.
Yeah, we saw an article
I
not too
definitely
long
know
ago.
there won't be a sequel.
Yeah. And we saw an article not too long ago about how it was $5, and it's like, that's still too much. They would have to pay me at least $20
I
to
couldn't
play
even
this
pay
game.
that. Yep.
Yeah.
I couldn't even pay that. $5. That's like 2 energy drinks.
Well,
like I know how to waste money, and then I know how to waste money.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Now to the goodness.
Okay.
And of course, as all reviews go, I haven't played every game this year. So it's kind of a personal preference, but also things that we are excited about, hence why they're on our list.
Yeah.
So
I mean, these are our top games. So not just the top games, but just our top games. So
it's not like we play games for a living. Oh God, if only.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. So number 1 or number 3 for me, G.I. Joe and the Wrath of Cobra. So this just came out less than a month ago. It is available on most systems. It's available on stream. I think right now it's tracking at like $25. And for those who may not know, obviously not just my age, but I grew up with arcades, and not like Dave and Buster's. I grew up with like arcades, in a very small town where they were kind of my window to the world. And also being an 80s kid, I grew up with G.I. Joe Doi. Now, why I love this game so much, especially for gamers of my set, is for those who may remember, there was a time, and we had an episode where I talked at great length about Konami and like how they made such an impact on me for so many years. So 2 games that come to mind, and they've done home versions, but they started with arcade versions of this 2D side-scroller gameplay with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, X-Men, and The Simpsons. And those games were the bomb. I adore those games. I think they were amazing. Yes, they were easy, shoot 'em up, beat 'em up. But, they were they all came from like Double Dragon, which is still near and dear to my heart. Well, as many G.I. Joe games have existed, there's never really been one like this that kind of encapsulated what Konami really spearheaded during that time. And it was funny because Taito with Double Dragon, it's like, well, you guys got the keys to the console. Like, nobody's really done this. But Konami was the one to really make it happen. They had big successes with these games in the arcade. I should know, because when my father would ask me where my allowance was, I'm like, well, I don't know. But this scratches that itch for the retro gamer in me. It is very much that side scroller. It has the 8-bit music that, and you get to kind of live this 80s fantasy of a game that never really happened until now. And, you can choose from Duke, Scarlet, Snake Eyes, all these, fun characters that we grew up on and stuff like that. But it's just fun. And I think definitely for what we do as far as part-time gamers, this scratches that itch big time, because you don't have, this kind of open world, almost excessiveness to where, okay, save here and all that stuff. This is literally, you play, you have fun, you take a nap.
Yeah,
easy, lemon squeezy.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Steam page right now. I'm actually showing it on stream because I forgot I could do that. I didn't actually forget, but I just haven't done it in a while. But Yeah, it's looking like a pretty it's looking like a pretty nostalgic beat 'em up.
Mhm.
Currently
Yeah,
has mixed
it's so
reviews
deep.
over on Steam, 63%, but a lot of the reviews on here are saying things like along the lines of it's nostalgia and stuff like that,
Yep.
but that doesn't
And
really
it is
do things
definitely
to
nostalgia
elevate the
bait.
game, but I'll sometimes you don't need it to elevate the game. You just want
Exactly.
what it has.
Well, I could
So
see where they could go places to elevate it, but it would be like trying to make like an open world Pac-Man where he had a drinking problem. It's like you don't have to make this bigger than it needs to be.
yeah,
Like you find out the dots he picks up are actually Molly and he's got like a problem. It's like, oh, it's like, no, it doesn't have to be anymore. Sometimes it just needs to be what it
what it
is.
is. Yeah,
And it scratches that itch. It checks that box. And this is a perfect example of that. Because I remember seeing like ads and stuff for it. And when you get to a certain age, you get nostalgic because you're older. And you're like, I miss this, I miss that. I wish they would do this, I wish they would do that. And this is one of those things. And just seeing the ads, I was like, oh, like I remember, and I even went back to like some old gameplay and stuff like that of like The Simpsons and all that stuff. Like I grew up at an arcade. Well, the big one I grew up, which was just down from my house, was called Tilt. And they had at one point Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Simpsons, and the X-Men, all from Konami, three ways.
yeah,
And we would literally just jump games. And it was such a good time. So, yeah, this is very much nostalgia baiting, but I got the fish hook. It got me.
yeah,
And it's nice to remind ourselves that we're kind of timeless. Like, yeah, we get older and we look at our 401ks and shake our head. But it's kind of nice on occasion to look and go, I I used to have fun with that. Like that was a good time. That that
yeah,
that meant something to me. That was good.
yeah.
So that's my number 3. Number 2,
All right.
no big shock, a Batman game. And I didn't throw up. I was so proud of myself.
Oh, are you talking about
Batman
the V?
Arkham Shadow.
Is that the VR one?
Yes.
Yeah.
And and okay, so two things. One, I hadn't played a lot of our Oculus because I was like, I played some of it and I was like, I'm getting dizzy. And two, they don't have Beat Saber with 9 to 5 yet. So I'm very disappointed about that. You know. But of course, being a Batman game, and the first ad I saw for this thing had literally like 2 slices of the roast beef that is my existence. You had a Batman game, and the trailer played Poison from The Prodigy. And I'm like, I will give you all my money. I will give you other people's money. I will mug them. That's a promise. So this is the VR iteration. Not so much the iteration. I mean, it is storyline on its own, but it obviously takes from all the Arkhams and kind of distills it into this VR package. And VR games and me are not buddies in a lot of cases because I get what I call walleye vision, where I get kind of like thrown off and I'm like, whoa. And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm not at sea yet. I want to puke.
Yeah.
And I don't want to let Jack on the armoire. He could freeze. He could fat Rose. As once again, as a Batman fan, this is what it's like to be Batman, minus the billions of dollars. That
Yeah.
doesn't come with the game, so I'm calling BS on that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's not fair.
No. The overall gameplay is pretty good. There's a little twitchy glitchy points where you're like, and I had a couple of moments like I had to go back in and play because I'm like, okay, so did the game have issues or did I have issues?
Yeah.
Because like I said, it's a little uneasy. Because my girlfriend was literally like, "You're not gonna play the Batman game," because I got it and everything. She's like, "You're not gonna play the Batman game," and she loves that thing. She doesn't play it as much as she used to, but she tried it out and she was like, go. She was like, you spent money on this, money. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't run me. And she was like, yeah, I do. I'm like, yeah, you do. So I played the game. And it basically takes everything we love. And like how you mentioned, with the Batman Arkham series, that just knocked it out of the park. And you look at that, and that's like 10, 15 years back. And it's like, okay, so how do you go from that to, Suicide Squad? The makers here really knew the assignment, I guess you could say. They know that even in a VR form, why we loved those games.
Yeah.
And there's a lot they put together, and they borrow from that, and they kind of put here. Some of the stuff that gets up close really messes with your head. Because as VR should be, like, if someone's whooping your ass, it's not going to be like, oh, look, it's going to be almost felt like Lawnmower Man, like, oh, God.
Yeah.
Graphics are off the chart. It's probably one of the best I've seen to date in VR. And that's saying something, not to negate other ones, but, VR, as far as graphics, haven't totally done it for me. Just for me, it feels hit or miss. I also accept the fact that I don't usually play a ton of VR games. So I'm grading on a rather small scale. But I actually saw the trailer for this at the movies, and I just went, like, between the music and that, like, I literally sat there and I was just like, what? So, it's a fun one. It is, if you love VR, I guess a better way to put it too, if you want to see VR go to the length that it should, like, you can see VR like, oh, okay, like, they can really make that boat sail. This is the game for it, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Batman can't miss, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I'm looking at it right now because I was Googling it while you were talking. And unfortunately is not on Steam yet. It looks like it might be a timed exclusive for the Oculus headset, for the Quest headset, at least for the time being. Like I said, I have a VR headset over here now. I need to get back into it. Once we have a bunch of Christmas stuff up now, which means that we have a bunch of stuff that was normally upstairs in my area. And it's a little bit more difficult to play VR games when you have a piano right where you're supposed to be swinging your arm. So
Right.
I'll probably have to do a little bit of rearranging, but I want to get back into some VR games. I bought VR. I bought Half-Life Alyx on the autumn sale.
Oh, nice.
So finally, after having it on my wish list for about 4 years, I want to get into that at some point. So anyway.
Nice. Yeah, it's a fun one. I think, especially not just Batman fans, but I think of just a good time, especially for VR. And there are some heroes. It's like, yeah, you could pull off VR. You wouldn't have Polka Dot Man in VR. Why not? Actually, be kind of cool. But, like, you could only do certain things with certain characters. There's an Iron Man VR that actually kind of, like, that came out a few years ago, and that was fun. I don't really mess with VR so much, but yeah. Batman, got it. Prodigy, got it. How much is that? Oh, you want me to apply for your credit card with the high interest rate? Pen. I'm very simple that way, obviously. For those who may not know, it's like, like you could get me expensive gifts. I'd be like, hey, thank you, that's cool. You give me like a Batman keychain, I'm like, ooh.
Yeah.
So, G.I. Joe, Batman, and like I said, I think they're worth a whirl. This also kind of goes into the part-time gamers as far as the second one, the Batman. You have a good time, and you can check out a bit.
Yeah.
So, drum roll. No, that wasn't my stomach. So, my number one game this year, and when I love something, like when we enjoy something, it's chemical. Like, we can't always tell people, but we know what we like and we know why we like it.
Yeah.
And I have talked before about one episode we did where I gushed about Konami at great length.
Yeah.
And not just because that's the case, because I'm one of those people, it's like, I love certain games, and it's like, why are you remaking that? Why are you doing this? Why are you, you don't have to, once again, it's like, you don't have to give Pac-Man a drinking habit, okay? We know he's a drunk, but but this game, for me, like, as soon as I started playing it, like, I got misty-eyed. It's like, okay, it all led to this, to kind of be whimsical with it. All led to this. Like, now I get it. But my number one game this year, for yours truly, is Silent Hill 2.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, can I get a witness? This is a game, even early on, and I got to go a little forward. I might get a little misty-eyed, but when I played Silent Hill for the first time, because everybody loves what they love, and we see games that happen and it just doesn't really check the box. And I remember as a kid, like, reading comic books and like, wouldn't it be cool if they had a Moon Knight series, or wouldn't it be cool if they had a Doctor Strange movie? And those things happen. So somewhere down the line, once upon a when I was still active duty, very young in my military career, I, I worked late and I had two very young children, so I had very little time to myself. But what time I did have, I had my little PlayStation, and I got this game that I had heard raves about. Now, oddly enough, I was in Japan at that time until towards the end of my tour. I didn't go off base a lot, so I heard a lot about games, but I didn't get to really take in that culture until my last year, where I could really go places with my kiddos. And I remember getting this game, and I was like, what is this? And I put on the first Silent Hill. And this is one of those games where it's like, am I really playing a video game with the lights on? like, like I'm trained to be a fighting machine. And I hear something, like, I hear my son wake up to get water, and it's like, who are you? So fast forward. I still do that. He's 26. He's come over. Hey, Dad, who are you?
Yeah.
And it was one of those games that I took on deployments with me. Obviously, there's been several iterations. And I remember hearing about this little by little and having kind of that, I like what they did with some of the Resident Evil stuff, but I wasn't exactly like hooping and hollering for it.
Yeah.
But that Konami lover in me will always shine through. I mentioned with the G.I. Joe game, like, it was part of those 2D side shooters that Konami had a huge stake in bringing out and doing well with for so long. And I got this game begrudgingly because I'm sitting there starting a new job, trying to figure some stuff out. And I was like, do I really want to spend this? And I'm like, you know what? Let's find out. I go and I put it in. And oddly enough, once again, it was late. My girlfriend had already passed out, and I turned it on, and I had weird how 20 plus years later you get that hold your breath moment coupled with the next one. Like, you kind of remember where you were when you first experienced this, or kind of where you were when you saw this movie that became your favorite movie. And I turned it on and I went, about 20 minutes in, I'm like, I got to go outside and have a cigarette. Like, this is, they, anytime you remake something, it's always tricky because there's that balance of, why are you doing this? What do you think needs fixing, and what the outcome is going to be? And somehow, some way, they pulled it off across the board.
Yeah.
Graphics, they've upped the ante on that. The only hang up I have, if any, is like some of the facial expression stuff doesn't quite track. Some of the dialogue is still a bit hokey, and that's okay. Because, I mean, the game is literally a giant, It's a cross between Twilight Zone and Twin Peaks. And I was always a fan of both. But the mechanics got much better. They really refined what needed to be refined. Some of the puzzles got a little long-winded, like trying to set the clock to a certain time, and it used to be, okay, just do that and read the riddle. And now it's like, well, I've got to go a town over to go. But that also, and this is where they got it right. Because if you're going to expand something, expand it for a reason. Don't expand it because now you have more space to play with. And that's what they did here. Like a lot of the puzzles where you have to kind of go further than just reading and then doing something. There is mythos there where you're going to pick up information or you're going to see things and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Still scares the bejeebus out of me. Oh my, once again, like turn on the light. My girlfriend's like, why is the light on? I'm like, shh. I'm being terrified. I'm busy.
Yeah. I mean, I'm this like historically, I think it's the original one. I think it's historically the game where Scott Johnson played it, stopped, took the disc out, laid it down, went to bed with all the lights on, and tried to go to sleep. After like I don't know how long after the game, but yeah, I have not played a Silent Hill game, because I actually don't like getting scared. Hence why it took so long for me to play Phasmophobia in VR. But I've seen other people play it, and yeah, it's terrifying. Yeah.
Oh yeah, they know, it's like any good horror movie. And I kind of, this is a little more serious than that, but I kind of take from Sam Raimi because it's like he wanted to do comedies and he ended up doing horror movies that also ended up being comedies. And his belief, and I think he's right because I think he's been successful enough, that setting up a joke and setting up a scare is very similar because you have to have pieces and you have to have them in place.
Yeah.
And this has that. And the best part about it too, about great scares, is Hitchcock-like tension. Like something's coming. It's not the fact of what's necessarily coming, because you probably already know when. It's that lead up right before you get bonked on the head and you're just waiting, and then there it is. Yeah. And that's something that even way back when with the early Silent Hill did very well. And I remember when I was married, one night, just a couple of my airmen came over, a couple of friends, because I was still young, but we were just hanging out, grilling, not doing too much. And she was like, "Is this game you bought?" I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "So you played it?" I said, "Yeah." And she was like, "Can we check it out?" And I disclaimered it, and not like in a, "Oh, hey, don't watch Faces of Death" kind of way. I was just like, it's actually meant to be like a scary game. Like it plays with light and shadow, it plays with fog. I used to call this game It's Always Foggy in Silent Hill.
Yeah.
I want that shirt. And she played it for like 10 minutes. And she stops and she looks at me, she goes, "What is wrong with you?" I'm like, "Did you not know?
I gave you a disclaimer and everything."
Yeah. She was like, "You're crazy." I'm like, "Well, you're Mrs. Crazy." But they got everything this needed for tune-up. And I guess that's the best way for me to describe it. For a tune-up, they got right. The playability, the mechanics, the scares, visuals are off the chain. Probably some of the best I've seen to date as far as video games go. Yeah. And it is still very much Silent Hill. It still carries over as far as like the mythology of the town and all that stuff. And great games this is one of those where like I can feel like they took their time, but great games don't necessarily try to be like, "Ooh, play me." It's like, let's focus on the game and let the work speak for itself. Yeah. And yes, but this being somewhat of like a remake, it's like, well, yeah, they already had like the blueprint. It's like, Yeah, but when you can up the ante on your own stuff and still keep why, and not just the best
Yeah.
parts, I mean, why the game was good to begin with, and you can still keep that and yet elevate it and find that balance. Yeah, I happily paid that $70 worth every nickel.
Yeah, I've been hearing really good things about it. Again, not the kind of game that I would want to get, because I prefer games where I'm doing the scaring of the
No Alien
guys instead.
Isolation.
Oh no. Oh,
I had to throw that
I
in there. We're
played.
talking about horror games, and there's a sequel coming.
Yeah, I know. Which we will probably talk about at some point once it gets here. But yeah, when we talked about it, I think it was last year or the year before. Yeah, I played it for 2 hours on stream. That's all I wanted to play. Because it was terrifying. I'm discovering a, like, with all of the horror based games that we've played, I think the main thing that makes them so scary is the sound design. If you have good sound design in your scary game, it enhances everything about it. Because again, even if there's no monsters or anything visible, just being able to hear things is just terrifying. It's something primal. That's why we have our hearing in the first place. Is like, I don't know what that is. I can't see anything. All I can do is hear it. Yeah.
Yep.
So, but yeah, for the most part, if a horror game has good sound design, it's going to be, I think it's going to be pretty good.
This is fantastic, and I had my sound bar turned up, which was dumb on my part.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really what you want in like 4D sound. Creaky floorboards.
Yeah. Where it's like, okay, is that from the game or is that from my daughters above me? Yeah.
Anyway. Play with your head, and like you said, sound design is very key in these type of games. And Silent Hill, as well as the Resident Evil series, definitely always shout out to them. But they know, I mean, even early on, they knew the importance of that.
Yeah.
And why games like this can work as well as they can. So Halo 2 for me, my game of the year. It's pricey at the moment. It will obviously come down. But if you want to spend $70 on a game to hope it's worth it, I mean, I'm not collecting a check from them, so I'm not advertising it per se. But this is one of the few games at that level that I think actually answers the call.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yep.
All right. So as a review, our games, Theo's games of the year. Well, number one for being the ultimate suck is no surprise, Kill the Justice League. That's probably going to be pretty high up on everyone's worst game of the year. G.I. Joe, Wrath of Cobra. Was it Batman Arkham Shadow VR? What's that?
Did you say Pac-Man or Batman?
I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. I'm pretty sure I said I think I said Backman. Right. Just combine them together. Backman. Anyways, Arkham Shadow. I'm pretty sure Bo Schwartz has also played that recently, and he says it's a pretty good experience. So
it is.
And then Silent Hill 2 remake specifically.
It's that one especially, like Silent Hill. That's one of those that checks the boxes of why, especially me. I can speak for myself, obviously. Yeah. Why I enjoy games as much as I do. Kill the Justice League, even at $5, like on a disc. Do not do that for like a gift giveaway this year. Don't hate Maggie, who microwaves fish that much.
Yeah. Anyways.
Maggie likes Mahi Mahi. Just let her do that, but don't get her that game because you hate her.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, that is pretty much the definition of malice. Anyways, if you like what you've heard, that's pretty much it for today. So if you like what you've heard and would like to help us out, you can give us a review over on Apple Podcast. You can follow my Twitch and or YouTube channels for our live recordings Sunday nights starting at 9:15 Eastern Standard Time. Or you can become one of our patrons over at patreon.com/ptgcast. If you'd like to contact us, you can with our email, parttimegamers.cast@gmail.com. Or a better way of getting a hold of us is you can join our Discord channel. I check it pretty much every day, probably multiple times a day. And if you want to contact us right away, that's a great way of doing it. Everyone, thank you for listening. Next week, I'm hoping that we'll be able to have September's Games of the Year. She is going through a little bit of family stuff right now. I won't go into too many details, but hopefully things are smoothing out. I'll keep in contact with her if she's able to do it. We'll have her Games of the Year next week. If not, I believe the Games Awards are this week. If we cannot get September's Games of the Year, we'll discuss the Games Awards. One of the two. Just to keep everyone apprised of what's going on. Anyways, I'm Sean. You can find this show and the rest of my works and links to my socials, including our Discord channel, my Twitch and YouTube channels, and the Apple Podcast listing using the link bit.ly/CI Productions. You can find Ember's work over at 9of12.com, NINEOF12.com. Forgot how to spell 9 for whatever reason. All right, Theo, where can people find you around the internet?
In a dark alley next to a Piggly Wiggly that's been closed down.
That's not on the internet.
Oh no, not Piggly Wiggly. Good God.
Yeah.
I'm amazed those things still exist. I can be found at rabbitandredradio.com. We've actually had an episode we've been pushing back. My co-host has had tech issues. I've had personal stuff. One of our cats passed away, Mr. Boom. So we were hoping to get back into our paces. With any luck, this Thursday coming up at 7 p.m. Eastern time, and we are going to look at Christmas horror movies.
Again, kind of an odd combination, but I could see it.
Oh, I got one for you real quick, and I do mean real quick. Okay, for those who love A Christmas Story, the man who directed A Christmas Story, Bob Clark, also directed Black Christmas, which is a sorority house kind of slasher in a Santa suit kind of horror movie. And it has like Margot Kidder in it back in her heyday. Yeah, the same guy who directed A Christmas Story. Yeah, and I love Black Christmas. I just watched it, and it almost plays, because the way he shot, there's no distinction between the way those two movies are shot. Same director, same style. But Black Christmas almost plays like a horror documentary, especially now. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. That one's good. Just like the same guy who did the Mad Max movies also did Happy Feet and Babe.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Don't you love that? Oh, God, I love that stuff.
Yeah. All right. Well, everyone, until next time, we are the Part-Time Gamers, clocking out.